How's it going, everybody? My name is Jake from Cali Raised Moto. Today I want to talk to you guys about our plug-and-play LP6 kit for your 2015 and newer Road Glide. Our kit comes complete with a bracket, filler plate, and two LP6's, of which you can choose to be white or amber. Our plug-and-play harness allows you to operate the backlight on these lights when on accessory, as well as the low and high beam, just as it did from the factory up on your handlebars. We're going to walk you through the install process today, and you'll see why this kit is the ultimate lighting upgrade for your Road Glide. We're going to start with the fairing and seat removed. There's plenty of other YouTube videos that'll show you how to take these guys off, but we're going to make it a little easy here. We start with a 48-inch long zip tie that we cut the end off of, and we run it down the hole in the neck on the Road Glide. You don't have to use a zip tie. I've heard of people using fishing line or a wire chase pole or anything like that, but we find the zip tie to work the best. We push it all the way down to where it comes out by the battery, and then we tape our harness to the other end of the zip tie. You will notice that the ground wire is a little bit longer than the positive, and you'll see why here in just a moment. But we tape our ground wire, and then we tape our positive down just a little bit further so that when you pull it through the frame, you don't have the obstruction of both coming through at the same time. Once you've pushed it all the way in, we go down to under the seat and we pull the zip tie out down to the bottom of the frame. Once both wires are out, go ahead and remove the zip tie and the electrical tape off of the ground and the positive cable. Make sure that the positive cable reaches out below the frame. You're going to take our connector here. There's no need to strip the end, just push it all the way in. And then you're going to crimp down the blue piece until it's completely flush with the yellow part next to it. At that point, you're pretty much done with the hardest part of installing this entire kit. On the positive side, there is a fuse holder here. This will run either mini blade fuses or ATO regular blade fuses. We're going to remove these two bolts at the back of the battery here and begin to lift all the electronics off of the battery. Be careful not to pull anything too hard. You're going to push the splice back up into the frame, and then we're going to hook the ground and power up to the battery and tuck the fuse in here away from everything else. Once we get back up to the front, you'll notice you do have 3 plugs left here. 2 of these go to the LP6, the other one's going to plug into the stock bike. Notice that the harness is pulled all the way back because you did pull the power wire so that we could crimp it. We're going to pull it back towards the front of the bike just a little bit. That's going to pull the splice back into the frame. Then we're going to plug the headlight kit in here to the stock bike and get it tucked up and away. You're also going to see us fold these relays back. We're going to grab a zip tie here in just a second and clean all that up. Once you get it zip tied back here, we just pick one of the main wires to tie it to. Our whole goal is to hold it away from the bracket and everything up front. At this point, we're ready to put on the main bracket. You're going to grab it and grab your 4 stock headlight bolts that came out in the original headlight. You're going to get this mounted up. Make sure that the wires are coming out both sides, nothing's caught underneath. And then put in 1 bolt at a time. I always start with the bottom one first. The top has a sliding oval so it can adjust up and down. But once you get the bottoms in, it kind of centers the bracket for you. Notice how easy it is to get to these bolts. Part of what makes our kit stand out here at Cali Raised Moto is how easy it is to install. So these bolts you can see from the front, and you can get a regular Allen to them without having to try and reach your hand behind the LP6's once they're mounted. It's just a simple thing to get to. Now these lower bolts we are going to leave loose because we will be pulling them back out later to install the filler plate. Now we're going to lay out all of our M6 Allens, place all of the lock washers on top of them, and then apply some blue Loctite. You will notice that we give you 10 of each, although you will only use 9 for this kit. We do provide an extra just in case one gets lost. We have already mounted our LP6 into each cradle using the hardware in the LP6 kit itself. Once you've mounted those, you're going to take your first light, bring it to the bike, and make sure that you plug this in before installing these screws. I have forgotten to plug it in before, it sucks. Now let's get this thing bolted up. You're going to take a 5mm Allen and your M6 nuts, make sure that your lock washer's on there, and bolt the cradle to the back plate from the front. Keep in mind there are 4 M6 nuts for each cradle, and make sure that all 4 are in before you torque any of them down. Once the 4th bolt is in, go back around and snug up all 4 of the other bolts. They don't need to be torqued, as you don't want to pull the threads out of the back plate, but do make sure that they're snug. This customer chose to go with a white and an amber LP6, which seems like about 70% of our customers choose to do. I personally ride with it that way. It enhances your night vision as well as your depth perception, and in my opinion it just makes it so much more clear. There's no right or wrong side as far as which light goes on which side, but I normally install the amber on what would be the driver's side or the side with the oncoming traffic, but that's just a personal preference. Once we're done snugging everything up, we're going to put these to the test before we bolt everything up. Since this is a CVO, we're just going to turn the ignition on, verify that it goes to low beam, and then we're going to check the high beam. Once we've verified that everything works properly, we're going to get ready to put the filler plate on, and then put the fairing back together, and get this bike ready to ride. Now we're tidying up all the wiring, making sure that we pull all the wires back behind the filler plate. Notice the tab sticking up there in the center. That's going to be where our filler plate bolts on. Since these lights are so bright, you do want to make sure that they are adjusted to level or just a little bit below level at about a 15-foot test to make sure that you aren't shining them in other drivers' eyes. Once we've adjusted these lights, we tighten down the 7/16 bolts and get them ready for the filler plate. Once this filler plate's on, you can no longer reach the inner 2 bolts. The next step is to add in our filler panel. Before you put the filler panel on the bike, we suggest putting our bulb seal on the top of it. Be very careful, as you can bend this filler plate and it's very hard to get it back to straight again. Once the bulb seal is all the way on, you're going to head back to the bike and remove the 2 lower bolts from the main headlight that you installed loosely earlier. Once you have those both out, you're going to pick the filler plate up and slide it on top and bottom at the same time. Take your stock headlight bolts and reinstall them in the 2 lower bolt holes. Once those 2 are in, you're going to add a single M6 bolt up to the top in the center, which is what locks everything down. Now don't worry, this bolt will be hidden by your fairing once it's installed. We're going to go back down to the bottom here and snug up these last 2 bolts, finishing off the filler plate.